So Thomas Klein, he made an article, and Thomas Klein is also a linguistics professor. He made an article called Gullah Geechee on America's Tongues. And he basically proved that that the Africans that came from Africa went straight to the Charleston slave market. And Charleston is also where I'm from, so that's how it relates to it. So I think that y'all should listen to this speech because Gullah Geechee is going to be involved in one of your ethnic study classes or courses in college. And if it's not, then I highly recommend it. It should be. So I'm going to teach y'all about Gullah Geechee. So there's 3 important things that y'all should know, right? So first I'm going to teach y'all the history of Gullah Geechee. Secondly, I'm going to teach y'all what is Gullah Geechee and how it evolved. And lastly, I'm going to teach y'all the roles that it plays in the American society. So first we're going to talk about the history of Gullah Geechee. So Gullah Geechee was first founded and recognized and discovered by a guy named Lorenzo Dow Turner in 1932. And he realized that some of his classmates and the people he went to school with at his college, which was South Carolina State University, in 1929, he realized they had a weird American accent. It wasn't like an actual African language because they were speaking English words, but they sounded different. They sounded weird. So he wanted to figure out what it was, but he didn't want to just go up to him and ask him. He wanted to study on his own. So he took up the linguistics class and he figured out what it was, and then he realized, and he came up with a solution that it was called Gullah Geechee. So in the 1600s, slaves from Africa came to America, directly to the Charleston slave market, and they were all from the coastlines of Sierra Leone, the coastlines of Liberia, and the Congo, Angola region in Africa. So when they first came to Charleston, they spread out. They all just dispersed, and they all expanded, and they rapidly grew within the South Carolina states and Georgia. So after they grew, they just over time they eventually just took over the population of both of these states, and they became the majority of the population in Georgia and South Carolina. So then they started to combine these two different African cultures. They were all around each other all the time, and they didn't know how to speak to each other. So they were next to each other at all times, and they decided to combine each other's language, but they didn't know what to call it. So they basically used a distortion of the regions and the tribes that they were from in Africa, and they put them together. So the word Gullah, which is part of Gullah Geechee, the first word, came from the people who are from the Congo-Angola region in Africa. And the word Geechee came from the Liberia people because the people in Liberia are called Geechees. When they came here, they just Americanized the word and they called it Geechee. So after this, a professor from Duke University named Kendra Hamilton, she proved that Charleston had one of the best slave markets in the South. So not only slaves were coming from Africa, they also came from the Virgin Islands. And then the slaves from the Virgin Islands, they had their own different language. It was called Creole. So now we got Sierra Leone's language, well, the Africans from Sierra Leone, and then we got the Africans from Liberia's language, and we got the Creole language from the slaves from Virgin Islands. And let alone, we still have the English from their slave masters. So these four languages, they combined together, and that's how they came up with the Gullah Geechee. So now I'm gonna tell you about what is Gullah Geechee. So Gullah Geechee is a culture and also a southern language in Georgia and South Carolina. So Gullah Geechee was formed, like I said, when they all combined it with each other, but it first started out as an actual language. So like back then, when it first came out, to translate something into Gullah Geechee, say for instance, chicken. Chicken was pronounced as beef, but that's the actual language. Another word would be dog. To say dog, that's dope. That's how they would say dog in the Gullah Geechee language. Another one, tote. That's how you would say carry. Or you order something, or you're trying to carry something somewhere, you would say tote, and that was the Gullah Geechee language. But nowadays, we modernized it, and that was proved by someone named Stephanie Dunstan, who studies Gullah Geechee. Like, that's her profession. That's all she does is study this language or this culture. She proved that over time it modernized, and now it's no longer a language. Now it's a dialect. And I actually use it too because I'm from Charleston as well. So, for example, if me or one of my friends or my parents or my grandparents or anyone else from Charleston of the culture, if we were to say, come here, we wouldn't just say come here. We wouldn't say the here word, we would say come yeah. Or if I was to say them over there, right, or like someone in the corner, I wouldn't say them over there, I would say them boy down yonder. Or if I was to say a real popular one that a lot of people use in the South, Texas, Georgia, Florida, anywhere, is instead of saying it's hot out here, I would say boy, you hot out here. And that's a funny one because everybody find that phrase to be weird because it doesn't sound nothing like the actual words. So now it's modernized and you can't even recognize the language because over time it just progresses to something else. But you can find Gullah Geechee, the language and the culture, inside the two states that I was talking about earlier, Georgia and South Carolina. So in Georgia, in the cities you can find it in Georgia is Tybee Island, Saba Island, Pinpoint, Sapelo Island, and a few other islands. But in South Carolina, you can find it in North Charleston, downtown Charleston, McCullenville, Georgetown, Edisto Island, Johns Island. There's plenty of places you'll find it, because that's where it all started. So now I'm going to tell you about the role that Gullah Geechee plays in the American society. So Gullah Geechee, they have their own actual community, land, everything. Because when they first came in, like I said, they expanded, and then they basically took over. But Emery Campbell, which is also, she studies Gullah Geechee. She's a professor at South Carolina State College in Columbia, South Carolina. She also proved that developers, when they came through, and also realtors, when they came through as tourists, just to view the land, they suddenly got an interest for it, and then they eventually took over the land, took over the Gullah people's land. And when this happened, the Gullah people didn't have anything because they were basically slaves, so they just had to just hand it over. Some people say that they bought it, but as I read in the research from EBSCO, that was all false. So basically, I just taught you about the three things. The three things I just taught you was the history of Gullah Geechee, what is Gullah Geechee, and the role that it plays in American society. So now that I've learned that the Africans that came to Charleston, South Carolina from Siberia, Sierra Leone, and Liberia, and from the Congo Islands, I finally realized where my ancestors were from. Thank you.